George is my brother, one of the best people that I know. And I am not surprised, was not surprised, and will never be surprised at anything he does. Because everything that George sets his hand to do, he does it well. That's the George I know. And you have to get to know him for yourself to know him like I do. The first thing I thought about was, George doing something like that and doing it well, and then wanting to dedicate, everything that he's done and everything he's doing to other people. He's all about helping people, all about trying to do well for other people, all about trying to do for other people as other people have done for him. So I was not surprised, excited when I first read the book. Everything in it was just George. It was very uplifting and inspiring, not just for young men and women, young boys and girls, for everybody, because they get to see how an ordinary person like George has gotten to shake hands, sit next to, talk to, write about people that we see, people that we know, people that we have no idea that we'll ever be able to talk to. But through his book, and through his knowledge and through his writing, we'll be able to talk to, sit by, shake hands with those same people. So I'm just excited about the book.
I want George Addison to be a motivator, an educator, and an overall great person and a great friend. Well, first of all, I was like, wow, George is writing a book about moments in the shadow of greatness, moments in the shadow of greatness. And I thought to myself, I'm like, George is just as great as the people that he's writing about. And I thought, oh my God, they can see what I see. All of his accomplishments, his accolades, what he's done in the community. I thought they should see what I see in George. And I just thought it was just great that he's writing this book. And everyone can see that he is great as well. And everyone can see what he's writing about, his passion for the community and his passion for our people. And once they see that, they'll understand who George is.
George Addison is an author, he's a writer, he's a teacher, he's an innovator, he is a fantastic member of this society. I love what he was doing with that. There's a lot of people these days, especially, trying to whitewash history and just come up with their own version of facts. And this is the man that puts it out there, whether it's about Muhammad Ali, the Obamas. And I like how he presents it to everybody and people that I had never heard of before. So. A lot of them are personal references. It's like George has really done a lot of research about these people, and a lot of the things, he's been around the block, so he's got to meet and talk to a lot of these figures firsthand. I love how he has these personal experiences where he relayed the information from his years of being around in Washington and in people's lives, and presenting that to me and the masses. It's a great read, and it's quick. I went through it pretty fast, and I would absolutely recommend it to any and all people. It's beautiful stories about people and pioneers coming up through the 20th century, and it has been fascinating to learn about people that I knew nothing about.
and Mr. George Addison.
I'd like to first of all say that I'm very honored to be among such quality people. It's nice to know that people can give of themselves without expecting anything in return, and then one day realize that people are watching you after all do a job. I would just only say that I think that everybody can take the opportunity to revalue the lives of individuals that they know directly in their own homes and their own families or in the community at large. I've learned throughout my life that no one is ever a throwaway person, and that everybody has something to offer. I'd like to thank all of those people that really have helped me do this. I haven't done anything, I just basically have been the vehicle, but many of you know, from the schools to the courts, just to the community. My love goes out to you, and I thank you very much for all your support. Thank you.
Mom got high. Why can't I? Much more to these stories today on Rolanda.
Period. I don't care whether Eva was your. I don't care. She is not supposed to smoke pot with you. Maybe amongst friends, but not with your parents. You're supposed to be a role model, and you and Eva are sitting down smoking pot. Hey, Dad, let's smoke a joint. Give me a break.
A mass cultural brainwashing about marijuana. I think it has been misclassified. It should not be in the same category with cocaine and any
George Addison now, he's a youth counselor and lecturer, and he's very much against drug use. And George, I would think that when you hear these stories on our stage today, this is the kind of thing that makes you work so hard and the passion that you give to your job. Just give your observations as you have listened.
Well, I'm also a product of that I'll try anything once generation. But I think that if most people from that generation were honest, they would really say to their children that I made some mistakes. And maybe trying everything once isn't a good policy or a good philosophy to follow.
So George, what I hear you saying is that, I mean, because a lot of kids, maybe after seeing the show, are going to go, Mom, Dad, did you ever get high? And is that how you answer the question? Yeah, I made mistakes in my life.
Yes, I think that if you're honest with them and you let them know up front that you did make mistakes and you are human and part of that process is learning trial and error type of things, then kids can respect you for being open and honest. Now, that's not a guarantee you're going to keep them from doing anything. As we all know, we all had our own individual thoughts, and even though we were warned about a lot of things, we still said, I'm going to do it my way and I'm going to at least try it, because we were all believing that if I do it at least once, it can't hurt. What can it hurt? The mothers here, they have both done all they really can do with their kids, in the sense that they've taught themselves blue. Both of these young men know their responsibilities, and part of that is at some point we all have to grow up. And also we have to realize that in order to coexist with other people here, we have to be responsible and accountable. Now, that's not fun. That's never been fun for anybody, but that's the fact of life, and I think that they need to deal with that. As far as this gentleman here with his daughter, I understand his viewpoint as it relates to medicinal purposes and gaining weight and all that. Those are good reasons to keep a buzz going. Sure, I understand that. But the reality is that if he affects only himself, that's fine. Now, at some point, what if his daughter drops off the wagon? Then as a taxpayer and a citizen, I've got to pick her habit up and just to try to get her to go. So those are some long-term issues, you know. But I think more immediately, all three of the kids need to basically accept their responsibilities for who they are,
George,
and do something.
You know, sometimes, so often, probably more often than not, parents at home are sending out the wrong messages that are leading their kids to go out and try even pot. Let's talk about that. And also, whether marijuana might lead to harder drugs, and does it damage your ability to learn? Well, the co-author of a new book on marijuana has some surprising answers. She's going to disprove what you may call marijuana myths. Right.
In terms of its harm, potential harm to the lungs, most people who smoke marijuana smoke so much less than cigarette smokers that it's not a real problem. Jeff, 15 cigarettes a day, marijuana cigarettes, that's too much, way too much.
Peter, George, let me ask you this. Parents who are going to fear that their kids are going to ask them about their own drug use, what responsibility, when you find yourself in a situation like this and the kids are going, Ma, you did it, now I'm doing it, Mom's saying, I'm worried to death, I don't want you to do what I did. How are they to handle this situation?
You take first crack.
Well, I think first and foremost, a parent should be honest. That doesn't necessarily mean that a parent needs to tell a child absolutely everything of their past life and everything they've done. But a parent shouldn't lie. A parent should be honest, but a parent needs to differentiate between when they used the world as it was then and the world today. I think most of us would agree the world today is a far more dangerous place. We have AIDS, we have teenage pregnancy, we have teenage violence, all related to early drug use.
When we come back, we'll get your side, George. And if you need help with a substance abuse problem, while you're watching the show, you may decide that this is the time for you to get help. We're going to give you a number to call when we come back, so grab a pen and a piece of paper, and we'll see you in about 60 seconds.
Children will hear as the TV shuts off her last comments and opinions, which sounds to me as a listener on the television said that she's advocating the drug. She's not offering a flip side because the majority of the children who are smoking this pot are abusing the substance as they are abusing alcohol or any other drug, and that's where the damage comes in.
Well, I think you see that very clearly in Jeff, who has not quite figured out his future yet. George, what is a mother to do in a situation like this? Number one, I would say get some help.
Correct, but I'd like to also add to the fact that today's pot is laced with a lot more stuff than what we used to get in the 60s. So a lot of other chemicals are going to play.
I want to say this. I understand where she's coming from, and she's got a lot of reason on her side, but she says that it only works for us because we live in a controlled environment. I'd like to point out that we, as parents, controlled that environment, and that is why it worked. We controlled it.
Your whole neighborhood helped to control the environment your child was in.
And
that is not the truth in New York City. Where the children come from.
You want to know why kids do drugs?
Listen, we only have a few minutes. You know what is interesting? This show could go on for another hour, which says that something about this show that is affecting a lot of people. Excuse me, Martin. I think what's real important is that, I know that Luann came here. Excuse me, please. Excuse me. Can I have my show back? I know that Luann came here because she's concerned about help. I'm not sure if that's something that Coretta wants to get involved in as well, but I know that you came here with hands offered for any help that our families might need.
I'm willing to extend a 5-day retreat for Jeff to come and kind of get refocused on his life. We're going to give him all the support we can to get him started over. But he has to want that for himself as much as his mother does. She's done all she can do. He knows that he's abusing the drug. He needs to go ahead and step to the next level and say, I'm willing to at least look at the possibility of what a clean life might offer me versus what I've been experiencing. This is not fun for him. So he needs to experience.
And the thing good, too, about a retreat, Jeff, is you get to meet a whole lot of other folks who are doing the same things that you're doing, including trying to redirect where they see their lives going. You think you're up for it?
Lord, is it? They're going to lock me up in a...
They're not going to lock you up. It's a retreat. It's a place to go and sit down and think and talk about things that are important to you.
We're going to go to a place for 5 days?
Hey, listen, if you're willing to try anything at least once, try a retreat. Okay? All right? It's not a lockup. Well, we're going to try to talk you into it. It's up to you, Jeff. You've got to want to do it. Martin, you're welcome to go too if you'd like. We're going to flash these numbers for you on your screen if you need some help with your own families. Obviously, this has touched quite a nerve. Like I said, we could go on for another hour. Help is there if you need it. That's what your mama came here for, and we're not going to let your mama down and not let you down either. So if you need it, we'll talk about that after the show. And we'll see you next time, everybody.
5 murders in Louisville happens in public housing projects. Now one man is fighting back, trying to make a difference. That's tonight's big story. Good evening, I'm Rick Van Hoos.
And I'm Liz Everman. Shepherd Square is one of Louisville's most troubled communities.
The housing project is located on Hancock Street, just south of Broadway. Jill Moss is live in the newsroom with the story of one man who's waging his own war on crime in Shepherd Square. Jill?
Rick, Shepherd Square residents say gangs, drugs, drive-by shootings, they're all a part of life in the projects. But one man is making a difference. This is Shepherd Square, a hotspot for drugs and gangs, a place where many are afraid to leave their houses.
Wild and crazy. You wouldn't want to be out on the full moon.
Why?
They just get gun happy.
George Addison is a man on the front line.
And I think that's what's most frightening about what's happening in our communities is the fact that now there's no regard for children. It can be broad daylight at any given time of the day as well as late at night, and then gunshots are fired, and it becomes a Dodge City.
Addison works out of the Presbyterian Community Center with kids on the brink of trouble. He knows what life on the other side is like. He used to be in a gang himself. Kids here respect him. His door is always open.
The vast majority of kids really don't want to be involved in gangs and don't really want to hang with them. But when they feel that their community is dominated by that atmosphere, kids are going to do what they have to do to survive.
She was talking crazy to me. And I went up in the house and I was talking to her, and she started to talk crazy and we started fighting.
For Latasha DeHaven, life in the projects is scary. At 14, she's already been in trouble with the law. For her and many others, George Addison brings hope.
Try to stay out of trouble. That's good. He gives me inspiration.
Addison knows he puts his life on the line every day, but he says he's made a promise to kids he intends to keep.
I work with kids in a way that could get them to look at the big picture, the positive picture about what life is beyond their street corners.
Addison helped create positive images that invoke self-esteem, or PATIS as it's called. It's a counseling program dedicated to helping kids find their way and bringing peace to the community. Rick?
Sounds good. Thanks, Jill. Now, here are some numbers to consider. Of the 68 murders in Louisville last year, more than a dozen happened in housing projects.
In recent years, Shepherd Square has become one of the city's most dangerous places to live. It hasn't always been that way. Look at this chart. In 1991, 92, and 93, there were a total of 3 murders in Shepherd Square. In 1994 alone, there were 3. Things cooled off in 95 when no one was killed there. But last year, there were again 3 more murders. This decade, 9
children have good table manners.
The restroom, you say, "Excuse me," and then you stand up.
Next, local kids get a lesson on restaurant etiquette. Finally, learning the do's and don'ts of restaurant silverware can be confusing to young and old. So today, some local kids got to tour a restaurant and learn a little bit about etiquette.
And remember, no elbows on the table, men. Men like to do that.
A group called Positive Images that tries to invoke self-esteem sponsored this tour of Bravos. These youngsters learn the correct way to behave when they go to a public place.
When you go to a table, gentlemen, before you sit down, you're supposed to pull the chair out for the lady sitting next to you.
We also believe that perhaps we have some budding restaurateurs here, as well as people who just like to see how things work, and hopefully they can take that and translate into some other medium or profession.
The kids also got a tour of the kitchen at Bravos. Thanks for watching. Road News Tonight is coming up next.
One of the most exciting programs that I've seen address the problems of juveniles, at least since I've been on the bench, the past decade. The enhancement of self-esteem, the forcing children to accept responsibility for their actions, and allowing the children to come into court to see the consequences of their actions, I think can make a dramatic impact on these children's lives, and I'm very proud to be supportive of the program.
Our first and second time offenders that come through, we basically refer them to the program. A lot of our kids have low self-esteem, so that's one reason we refer them. A lot of them need counseling or the big brother atmosphere is what George gives us. I received very positive feedback from the parents. The parents tell us how available George is all the time. Mr. Addison, he's always there for them. He works with them. When they can't find him, they usually call me. PATIS got started by
Mr. Addison appearing at our door one day, and we all kind of looked at each other as to who is this man. So my family resource coordinator and I sat down and talked with George and about his program and about the possibilities at Breckenridge. And as we talked, we gathered a little more information of what he had to offer our children. And we were able to share with him all of the trials and tribulations that our children go through on a daily basis. He had been working with another elementary school. Maybe I shouldn't say this, and we just told him that elementary school couldn't compare with what we could offer here at Breckenridge for children who need help. And he was sold after meeting our children, and we've been trying to get him on here as many hours as we can each day, each week, for the entire year. We get a lot of positive feedback, and especially from the children. They're very excited about being in the program. I get a lot of feedback from children who are not in the program, wanting to know when they will get to come, when they'll be with Mr. Addison. They look forward to the times that he is here. They want to be with him and work on their self-esteem, work on leadership. There's been a carryover into the classroom of the activities that children have done with Mr. Addison as far as being able to control their attitudes and their feelings about interacting with each other. It has become more positive and continues to be. The teachers have been very supportive. We in the office have been very supportive because we see it as another means of helping our children deal with the daily struggles that they deal with.
Here at Breckenridge, I think Patisse has been a tremendous success. I think the principles that are taught to students by the Patisse program are things that they're going to remember for a long time, and that they'll be able to apply into their lives as they continue their education and continue to pursue their goals in life. And the children really enjoy the activities and the kind of rapport that they've been able to establish with Mr. Addison. And I think that is something that's going to continue as they go through junior high and high school. The children have an opportunity to be exposed to positive role models. They have an opportunity to get together and talk about things that concern them, not just about the problems, but how they individually can contribute to resolving those problems. It involves working with parents and getting parents involved with their children and with the school. So all of those things, I think, are very positive things that schools would want to be affiliated with the program.
One program that's hopefully offering a solution for troubled teens. Wave 3's Dave Nakdeman with more on what's called Scared Straight.
Mary Weathers says she feared 15-year-old son Daryl would wind up in a grave. She said he ran with the wrong crowd and got into trouble, and other programs weren't helping.
And it frightened me to the point where I see that his attitude towards me coming home from school, he was angry. He didn't want to go to school anymore. He wanted to hang out with the kids. He wanted to come in late, and he's been a runaway a couple of times.
Because I was angry. I was like, she ain't let me do what I want to do. She's always on me. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, I guess to get out of here.
Daryl's mother turned to a program called Positive Self-Images that invokes self-esteem.
If you don't get off the track you're on now, a lot of you have heard this a million times, and you're going to probably wind up in one of these outfits.
Director George Addison talks about inmate orange. Daryl is among about a dozen kids who get the scared straight approach from poor inmates about poor companions and poor choices.
I took the easy way out, sell drugs. You know, and so when you get caught, you have to pay the price. I robbed people, burglarized homes, stole, done any kind of drug you can imagine.
Mary Weathers says Daryl is turning around.
I changed. I learned how to respect myself more, my family. You know what I'm saying? They can't always be in the street life.
I still have a long way to go, but I've seen quite a bit of improvement.
There's more to the program than forums. Tomorrow morning, Addison takes them to a boot camp near LaGrange. Dave Nakdeman, Wave 3 News.
And the courts refer teens to that program. Mary Weathers got her son involved after seeing a Wave 3 News story about it.
Coming up with Scott on Extra.
Well, we've heard a lot of talk about boot camps and the like when it comes to dealing with serious juvenile offenders. Well, it's happening in one part of Wave Country. You'll meet the man who's determined to turn around kids who have long records and stubborn minds. And a growing crusade in Louisville to get them back on track. Good evening, I'm Scar Reynolds. Angela has the night off. It's no secret too many teens are getting into serious trouble, but one man is making a difference. He's trying to reach young people before they fall through the cracks. Wave 3 News reporter Kimberly Hicks shows us how he's doing it in today's News Extra.
15-year-old Sean O'Bannon loves to play video games, but this fall he got a taste of the real accused of robbery, and a juvenile court judge ordered him into the Petite program. He had to go to boot camp at a prison in LaGrange.
And we had to stay outside, we had to stay in a straight line with our hands to our side, and then we had to be quiet.
So showing the children, if they don't take control of their lives now and try to be a productive citizen, then the judicial system is going to control their life.
Glenn Washburn says he's seen a change since Sean started the program.
We have chores around here for the children, you know, straighten up and things like this. I'm not going to do it. We don't hear that anymore.
That's exactly what George Addison likes to hear. He's program director of Petite, which stands for Positive Images That Invoke Self-Esteem. Addison works with the juvenile court system and local schools. When kids get in trouble, Addison tries to straighten them out before they go over the edge.
What I saw was a lot of death, you know, a lot of kids dying without hope, without a future, and without a sense of knowing who they were and how they fit into everything. So I just felt that, you know, I could probably contribute to doing something that might make a difference.
Addison believes in getting tough with kids and teaching them real-world lessons. That includes bringing in this man, a former gang member who did prison time for drug dealing and carrying weapons. He doesn't want his face shown because of his gang ties and concern about his safety. The danger is one reason he tells young people to stay away from gangs in the first place.
It's not all what it's cracked up to be. You know, and like I said, you can lose your life, you know, a blink of an eye. I mean, you're here one day, then you're gone, you know. So it's not anything, you know, to be happy about, you know.
The reformed gang member says kids often get into trouble because they grow up in depressed areas and have little hope.
We didn't know how to, you know, do like business stuff. We didn't know how to, like, you know, make buildings and stuff like that, you know. So the only thing we knew how to do was really to sell drugs and stuff like that, you know, so we can, you know, raise our families and stuff.
George Addison believes kids who go through his program are listening.
I would say the vast majority of kids, if you frighten them a little bit or give them just enough experiences to what it's like to be locked up or detained somewhere, it kind of wakes them up and gives them a little shake and say, hey, I don't want to be here.
Sean O'Bannon has learned his lesson. He wants to join the Navy one day. The teenager realizes the consequences of getting into a life of crime is no child's play. Kimberly Hicks, Wave 3 News.
Nearly 1,000 children have gone through that program since it started 7 years ago, and the program coordinator says about 85% of them stay out of trouble.
Well, so often we hear about the problems facing at-risk children.
Step award winners who aren't afraid to face those problems head-on. George Addison's service through excellent performance really makes a difference to kids in Wave Country.
It's not a joke because it's your life. I'm not going to be here. You're going to be here. So you better take advantage of the opportunity to listen to all those voices in your head right now, the ones where your moms and your dads are telling you to do what you need to do to get your life together.
Another man doing his part to help Wave Country kids.
I've had a very blessed life. I feel that I've pretty much lived 4 lifetimes already.
George Addison's is a life of extreme contrast. A boy reared in poverty, yet one who would become a military officer and a journalist.
My mother was divorced twice, and pretty much I was the oldest of 3 kids, and a lot of times I was the one that was pretty much trying to run things around the house while my mom worked. So, you know, I went from that kid to someone who eventually wound up interviewing presidents and ambassadors and working in press corps and doing a lot of things that I never thought I would do.
Then from a life of prestige to work with some of the most disadvantaged kids in Wave Country.
Formed some sort of structure and had people that kind of gave them that tough love that they didn't get on the outside.
Look at you, Grayson! You ain't coming here. Where are you going to go? Hey, you're sorry, there you go! We got it!
But Addison's greatest accomplishment? Petite, the positive images that invoke self-esteem. A program designed to shake young troublemakers into life on the right track. And this boot camp camp for adult offenders is one tool that helps them do it.
I've had some kids that come back a year or so later that tell me that it really made a difference for them, and it was enough to convince them they didn't want to come back.
And Addison's track record is good, getting gang members back in school, young drug users into rehab, yet his humility remains astounding.
No matter how small, how big you are, don't matter, you're going to pass the law. It amazes me because they look at me as though I've done something, and it's really only them realizing that they can do something for themselves.
That was enough to scare me into never wanting to go there, wasn't it?
I didn't do anything wrong after watching that. It makes you wish that every kid who's a problem child or having trouble could meet someone like Mr. Addison in a program like
He's talking about expanding it now to the East Coast, that program, so you may read about it in the national newspapers one day.
Well, we wish him well. We'll follow him along his path.
1998 STEP Award winners for their service through excellent performance.
George Addison knows changing lives isn't always easy. Through his boot camp program, the former military officer and journalist shakes young troublemakers into a more positive life.
I've had some kids that come back a year or so later that tell me that it really made a difference for them.
Joining us now is somebody who has dedicated his life to finding solutions for kids in trouble. I want you to welcome from Louisville, Kentucky, the founder and executive director of Positive Images That Invoke Self-Esteem, George Addison. George, thank you for being here. We need some positive thinking here, George. What do you say?
Well, first of all, I'd like to commend the fact that the parties are all still interacting, because that's a key component. And secondly, all the young people have to realize that it's now time for them to accept responsibility, and they have to start learning how to, first of all, respect themselves before they can be expected to appreciate what the parents are going through with them. Also, in terms, I think the parents sometimes have to give up a little bit and realize that they too might have forgotten how to respect their children and some of the trade-offs, and that you know, the only way they're going to ever be able to hear each other again is to, first of all, take a deep breath and then say, okay, I'm right on some of these issues, you're right on some of these issues. Where do we go from here?
Compromise.
Right, right. And a compromise in a way that will allow them to build and go forward versus stay retrenched in the same old habits.
But you know the reality, when you start fighting with your kid, you start fighting with your parent, it escalates, it escalates, it escalates. How do you get it to a point where you start communicating before it gets to a point where the telephone receivers start flying and the plates start flying?
Well, you hit it right on the head when you said that it has to start very early. In this case, with these individuals, we're trying to do repair work, basically. Trying to get them in a situation where when they go out and start their own families, they won't keep the cycle going.
That's very
that becomes
important.
more of a problem for everybody.
It becomes a generational problem. You're absolutely right. We'll have some final thoughts when we come back. Amanda just said in the commercial break, you know, if Michelle wants me to go someplace for 6 months, where does she want me to go? Believe it or not, folks, there is help out there. Sometimes separation in families between kids and parents or guardians is a healthy thing to do, just what they call time out. You have a program you wanted to talk about, George.
Well, basically, I'm offering an invitation for the three of them to participate in a chance to turn their lives around. And what we do is have an outreach program where we take individuals just like themselves and give them that sort of retreating time where they can come together and think about some of their past mistakes and how they can begin to plan goals and future objectives and go back to the environment and make it.
Why is that so important for these young people at 15, 17? Why is that so important for them?
Because
and tell them.
They are our future. And in essence, I'm trying to work with you now so that when I'm in my 60s or 70s, I don't have to worry about angry, embittered young people kicking my door down, dragging me out.
Right.
And at the rate that it's going right now, see, they're not unique. What they think they're unique, but they're not. There are a lot of families hurting just like this.
That's right.
So I'm trying to do something now that will kind of quell that and give us all an opportunity to kind of get ourselves back on the ground. You know.
And I think you made an excellent point, because if the kids are not under control or at least learning respect issues within their family, then we as a society don't have a chance. If you're going to hit your mother, there's no telling what a kid will do to us. So I applaud your program. Kids, are you willing to do that? Are you willing to take that risk, that chance? Amanda, you're the one who asked the question. Be careful what you wish for, young lady.
Yeah, I'll go.
You'll go?
I'll go.
Okay. All right, there's one. Jacob, what about you? You'll go, Jacob?
Yeah, I wouldn't really mind.
Okay, all right, there's another enlistee. There we go. And what about you, young lady?
I'm not going, I won't go stay, but I'll go to counseling at home. But as far as the staying, I won't do that.
Deborah, does that disappoint you?
Well, sure.
You ought to take a chance.
I'm willing to change. Everything she said up here today, I'm willing to do it.
Well, why don't you go to this program?
Because I don't want to go to the program and do it. I'm not going to that program and do it.
Wait a minute. Let's let these two teenagers talk. Amanda, talk to your peer. Talk to peer pressure.
If you want to change your life around at home, this is a way that you can do it. Think about it.
And you know something? You've already made some friends here. You have one major thing in common, that you all met on the Rolanda show in hopes of changing your lives to make better decisions. We don't think you're bad kids. We just think you're making some bad decisions right now. We believe in you. That's why you're here.
It's not just us that makes the bad decisions, it's the parents.
Well, when you're away, listen, when you're away, you're absolutely right. You're right. You're right. You know something? Maybe that time that you're away, Mom will have some time to think too. And when you come back together, you'll be so much more grown up, and you'll have a lot more to talk about as you plan the rest of your lives. I want to thank all of you for being here, for being so open and so honest. I hope it helped in some way, and I hope your family has been helped too. Believe me, you are not alone in dealing with family issues, and as long as we're on the air, we're going to keep trying to deal with them right along with you. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Rolanda.
When I first thought about writing Moments in the Shadow of Greatness Volume 1, I really didn't know how extensive the series would be. I just wanted to pay respects and homage to my mentor Gordon Parks for inspiring and encouraging me to have a better life, to be focused, and to give back. Never dawned on me that ultimately it would be 60 plus profiles that I would have planned to do. I just know that I'm grateful to all those people that have helped me grow as a person, as a journalist, as an author, as an artist, educator. and community advocate. I owe so much to so many people who saw a young guy that needed some direction and cared enough to try to give me a few words of wisdom so that I would be able to go forth and make a positive difference in this society. You go through life and you never really know the people you'll contact through your journey, people you'll become close with, the ones you'll even have faint memories or moments with, who turn out to be instrumental in not just your life, but in society in general. And when I moved here to Louisville in 1987, I didn't realize I would become as involved in this community. I had lived in Miami and I was active there, and Los Angeles, and I was active there, and DC, and in those places I became active also. And then what I've realized over the years is they weren't happenstance. I was supposed to be where I was at those times, having the kind of influence on people that would help them change their lives. I tell you, it's just amazing. I really am grateful, because I could have easily been dead from being involved in the riots, and investigative reporting, and the military. You just don't know what life has in store for you and where you'll wind up. I do know that because of certain people in my life, I'm motivated to do certain things to effect change in a positive and negative way. Negative in the sense that people who are doing ill or wrong don't want me impacting what they do. I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself. That's just what I'm about. I'll never forget when I was temporarily placed on a prison board, and it was, I think, three white people that were on the board, and they were Republican, very conservative in nature, and they looked up and noticed there was a black person in the room, and everybody wanted to know who I was. I wasn't, I really wasn't thinking. I was somewhat brash at the time because I was doing some positive things here with the at-risk youth population and the prison system, the education system, the social services system. And so I told them, I says, well, my name's George Addison, and I'm here to impact the flow of black and brown people headed to the correctional systems. We need to make a change. Why in the world I said that? Because the looks on their faces was priceless. It's like, this Negro gotta go. You about to do what? You about to mess with our money? And sure enough, when they had their next meeting, what was so curious was they didn't want to be called racist or anything, but they brought a brother to the meeting. And I can't remember his name now, but his sole purpose was to counteract any suggestions or any votes I might want to do. And even though my stay was temporary, I immediately saw how I had already created a change. It wasn't a change I was hoping to accomplish, but it let me know that whatever change or whatever push I made, that there definitely was going to be a push or blowback as a result, because life has passed many of these people back. And it's disheartening. It's disheartening and discouraging to the heart, to the spirit of who we are as black people in this country. You know, you want to make a difference in a positive way. You don't want to have a legacy of destruction and death and hate. Something that people in this country of color, as well as poor folk, have been fighting forever. Discrimination, vengeance. I tell you, it's like I said, very disheartening. I worry for my people. I really do. And I'm not a millionaire. I don't know if I'll ever be a millionaire. But I was always told that I was wealthy as it related to people, relationships, friends. I never really paid much attention to that. I didn't know how tangible that was. I just knew that through it all, the Creator was allowing me to make a positive difference for our families, our kids, our businesses, and other institutions. Turned out to be a pretty decent city when I got here. It was different from Miami, different from Los Angeles, and it afforded me opportunities to really do things. And I am grateful to the opportunities that the city and the people in it gave me. There was all sorts of rumors about me as it related to who I was, because I would pop up to help people, and whether it was schools or kids in their homes, families in their homes, and people would say, well, who's this man? Because folks weren't aware or accustomed to the fact that, you know, many folks who cared about their plight just come out of nowhere and start helping them. Start trying to address some of these issues. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to help people. I mean, I didn't have much as a kid. And my youth had its bleak moments. I didn't have a perfect childhood, but nobody does. And the only thing that we can do if you've had a bad childhood is to strive to minimize the negative impact that it may have on your life. My mother and father were divorced or separated when I was young, and they had an estranged relationship. My mother remarried a gentleman who was the greatest guy, we thought, and he wound up having to serve over in Vietnam. And when he came back, he was a changed person. And there was a lot of negative consequences as a result of his change. He was an alcoholic. He was doing drugs. He was violent. And even though my brother and I, we endured punishments and whippings with extension cords and his fist. And by the way,
seemed to take relish in always firing off at my chest as a young kid. I remember one time he hit me when I was in the bathroom, and he knocked me all the way into the bathtub with this one shot to the middle of my chest. And this guy that we had once loved and thought would really be great and work well with my mom, you know, he was just someone totally different that the war had messed with emotionally, psychologically. And back then, you know, there was no such thing as help, no such thing to address PTSD, no such thing to even help our family and other military families who were in crisis. But we survived it. I mean, we used to be actually putting our room doors shut, be 100 degrees outside and windows closed, and it'd be like a sweat box, and we would be tortured in there if we did something wrong. We'd be in there and had to endure that trauma. So all sorts of stuff kids have to go through. I dealt with gangs and bullies, and just never really know what was going to happen. Could have had a whole different life had it not been for a couple of other decisions that allowed me to realize that past crime and violence and gangs just really wasn't for me. It wasn't meant for me. I had been raised differently in those thoughts from other people. Had made a difference in my head, had impacted me differently. Just on this tip alone, you know, life is funny. It really is. And there's always some curveballs that is thrown. But you never know where you're going to wind up at the end of the day. You don't know whether or not it's going to be a positive thing or a negative thing, if you're going to be alive or if you're dead because of something that goes on out there. You know, shootings at grocery stores and carjackings and just people committing the most heinous acts against one another. And you never know if you're going to inadvertently fall into play in any of the stuff that's going on out here. So if you're fortunate by being healthy and able, there's a lot of good you can do to help people and to help try to create the type of society that's advantageous for everyone. I know one person can't save the world, but I do know one person can influence the world. And that's what we're working on doing. Is trying to find little positive things that everyone can do to help impact and make a change in the right way. I guess it was natural that at some point all of the community service I was doing would eventually lead me to write Moments in the Shadow of Greatness. More so because the people that I was focused on in their own lives had done a lot of that. So I guess you say it was only natural that eventually I would evolve to talking about those kind of people, because those roles have been played and were instrumental in my life. All in all, it's a great experience. Had me surely needs it. All in all, I hope that moments in the shadow of greatness get people to realize that they have more power within themselves than they actually think. And preparation, patience, and persistence, nearly anything is achievable. Despite the prejudice, despite the lack of finances, despite all that. Because I believe in the long run, that's what we're all here for anyways, in order for the species to survive. Civilization won't make it otherwise.
From time to time here in Kentucky on a Sunday, we like to introduce you to programs or doing some positive things in the community, especially doing something where somebody's giving back to the community, such is the case with my next guest. He's George Addison. And
volunteering is a lifestyle. It's something that you can be born into, or something that you can get a passion for to do. There's nothing like seeing someone struggle and you're able to impact that struggle to where you lessen that load for them and their families, and they're able to go on and far exceed any expectations that you have for them or they have for themselves. It's the greatest joy, and I think the greatest sense of true love that you can give to other people and share. My biggest push right now is promoting the book Moments in the Shadow of Greatness. I've had the opportunity to interview people like Muhammad Ali, Andy Young, work with Michelle and Barack Obama on volunteer efforts. And my goal is to try to at least donate 50,000 copies of that book to juvenile facilities and to correctional facilities to inspire and motivate people to have a new life, have a new mindset when they're released and back into society. It's sort of like my life passion and my life mission. You know, it's just like we talked about. I try to work with people to help them discover a way to recreate themselves, to have a second chance in life, to do things, to overcome their mistakes, their past mistakes. You know, I try not to be judgmental towards people. And I think most people that I come in contact with understand that I'm sincere about my efforts in helping them achieve the things they're trying to achieve. And if anything, hopefully that would be my legacy, is the fact that people know that I never judged them. I was always willing to go the extra distance to help them, and that I always held high expectations for them to reach their dreams.
It's an interesting opportunity that the chance that people have to work with kids to make a positive image in their lives.
First, I'd like to take this moment to thank WLKY and the Foundation for recognizing me for this year's 2021 Bell Awards. Often I do things in the community and I don't look for any return or any reward. Life's benefits are usually earned at the expense of those who give to you. So I appreciate the fact that my family, Brenda, Lindsay, Karen, Aaron, Philip, Ryan, Stevie, Raven, Tina, the Baldwins, they're all responsible for me doing any good work that I do. I'm inspired by young people like Eric Burse, like Leonard Davis Jr., like Marlon Guess. And I'm encouraged by friends like Antoinette Houston, Chandra Stroud, Michelle Jones Brown, Shay Woolfolk, and so many others to keep going in the struggle and the fight We're all supposed to be here to help each other, to service one another, to share love, respect, and understanding. Although we're not perfect, I think we need to all pledge ourselves to at least try. I'm so humbled by this reward, and I want to thank Republic Bank as well, and others who contributed to this for myself and the remaining recipients. Thank you very much.
The following excerpts are from the book, Moments in the Shadow of Greatness, Volume 1.
Moments in the Shadow of Greatness pays homage to all the people that have passed through my life and the lessons, motivation, and inspiration I gleaned from them. I further acknowledge those who have directly or indirectly influenced me to aspire to greatness and to leave a legacy that encourages others to do the same.
Gordon Roger Alexander Buchanan Parks, Sr. It was during that interview with Parks that he shared the story of how he became the first black film director in Hollywood. He said, "After I wrote The Learning Tree, and it became a successful book, several people came toward me to buy it for film. Finally, John Cassavetes, the actor, called me and said, 'I read the book. I think you should direct it.' I said, 'John, you know there are no black directors in Hollywood and there are not going to be any black directors in Hollywood.' And he said, 'Well, I think I know a guy just ornery enough to do it. I don't like him, and he doesn't like me, but would you come out here the day after tomorrow?' That's what I did. I went out to Hollywood, met Kenneth Hyman, who was the head of Warner Brothers 7 Arts at the time, and the man just miraculously said to me, 'I love your book. We want to do a film.' And he didn't care about the long-lasting law of discrimination or bigotry. He didn't pay attention to it. His father owned the studio and they had the money. And he said, 'Not only do I want you to direct it, I want you to write the music for it, I want you to write the screenplay, and I want you to produce it.' It was all over just like that. In 15 minutes, because a man who had the integrity, lacked the discriminatory practices of his forefathers, and said, 'I'm going to put a black man in here to do his particular book into a film,' and that's what happened. I was very happy about that. It's what my whole beginning was about, trying to open it up for other black people. In fact, when I was doing Learning Tree as the first black director in Hollywood, I immediately asked for some other blacks to work with me behind the camera. They told me that would be impossible because no blacks were trained for it. I said, let's try to find some. They might be out there. You can never tell. And so, Kenny Hyman said, okay, we'll try. And we tried. And we had about 8 people. Finally, it was more black people behind the camera than in the history of Hollywood.
Jessie Menafield Rattley. Ms. Rattley had very little pretense about what her goal or intentions were. She spoke to you in a frank and direct manner and expected you to do the same. Most importantly, she expected your loyalty and commitment to the people and their plight. Rattley's life was replete with firsts. In 1970, she became the first African American and woman to be elected to the Newport News City Council. In 1976, Rattley became the first African American and woman to hold the position of vice mayor in the city of Newport News, Virginia. In 1978, she was a board of directors member, and the first African American woman president of the National League of Cities. In 1980, she was named Newsmaker of the Year by the Virginia Press Women, Inc. In 1982, she was appointed by Governor Robb to the Commission on the Future of Virginia. Rattley was elected mayor of Newport News, Virginia in 1986 and served through 1990. In 1990, she was also named a Fellow of the Institute of Politics at the John F. Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University. Other recognitions include elected in 1992 as chairman of the Virginia Civil Rights Commission. In 1995, she was named chair of the Virginia State Advisory Committee of the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, and in addition, she was appointed to the Criminal Justice Crime and Prevention Task Force, and served as chair to the Board of Trustees for St. Paul's College. In death, she became the first person in the history of the city of Newport News, Virginia to lay in state at City Hall following her losing battle with cancer on March 2, 2001. Jessie M. Rattley has been recognized for many of her state, national and international contributions by organizations such as the National League of Cities, the U.S. Conference of Mayors, Old Dominion University, Hampton University, the NAACP and the National Conference of Christians and Jews. I remember Jessie Rattley as the consummate educator, business professional and mentor.
Muhammad Ali. When I had the opportunity to meet Ali the first time, I was surprised and nervous. The chance to meet the greatest of all time, the one and only Muhammad Ali, was an unexpected and awe-inspiring moment in my life. I was working as news director at WMBM Radio on Miami's South Beach when I got the call that the champ was in town to promote his upcoming bout against then title holder Larry Holmes. It was bittersweet news because Ali was a bit older and slower, and many people feared that he might get injured against Holmes. So, I set out to the old DuPont Plaza Hotel in downtown Miami to interview the champ and get a sense of whether or not Ali still had the goods to compete at the highest level. It was a beautiful day and the ambience of the DuPont Plaza could not have been any better. I walked through its great lobby visually drinking in its classic design and spaciousness and took the elevator to the champ's suite. The moment to meet my hero, role model, etc., had come and I knew above it all I had to be professional and appear not as a fan but as a journalist. Well, needless to say, that feeling lasted until the door opened. A gentleman beckoned me to step inside. I introduced myself to him and took a seat to await the champ's entrance into the room. A few moments later Ali entered the room and immediately filled it with his presence and took center stage. He welcomed me, shook my hand, sat down and prepared to answer my questions. The funny thing was that I did not get as nervous as I thought I would have during this interview. The larger-than-life image of the man I had grown up watching on TV appeared a little nervous himself in the beginning. It was our first meeting and perhaps he was not certain which persona I was interested in capturing. Unlike many of his previous televised boisterous interviews with Howard Cosell, Ali was very soft-spoken and had a way about him which naturally drew you in for more of whatever he was offering. Ali assured me he was making the right choice to fight Holmes and regain his title. He spoke about his record, his boxing skills and of course how pretty his face was. By the end of my interview I was honestly afraid that Holmes had more to lose by fighting Ali and might even get hurt. Ali had convinced me he was ready and confident that victory was at hand. Andrew Jackson Young. As a child, I was fortunate to have grown up during an era when some of America's leaders and activists were in their prime. Leaders like Malcolm X, President John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., James Baldwin, Robert Kennedy, Barbara Jordan, Shirley Chisholm, Patricia Harris, Winifred Johnson and many others who stood against social injustice and poverty. A number of them paid the ultimate price for their commitment to change American society and the world. One individual who fought on the front line for civil rights and social justice and who's still striving to make the world a better place is former UN Ambassador Andrew Young. A man who has worn many hats: pastor, executive director of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, United States Congressman representing the state of Georgia, United States Ambassador to the United Nations, and Mayor of Atlanta, Georgia. Young is famously known as the confidant and friend of the late civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. He is known as a man who says what he believes in and one who has dealt with various controversies in his public life. I met Young during a visit he made to Miami, Florida at the DuPont Plaza Hotel in 1979. That year was dominated by politics like the Iranian crisis, which came about when Ayatollah Khomeini seized power in Iran by overthrowing the Shah of Iran, thus leading to 53 Americans being held as hostages at the U.S. Embassy in Tehran. To top it all off, 1979 was also the year Young himself became embroiled in a controversy.
Michelle LaVaughn Robinson Obama. I met Michelle Obama in 2007 at a campaign stop in Louisville, Kentucky. I jokingly recall telling myself it was my chance to see what all the fuss was about. She was out stomping for her husband, Senator Barack Obama. I, like many others, wanted to get a sense of whether they were a novelty or serious political contenders. In my lifetime, I had already seen Shirley Chisholm and Jesse Jackson make unsuccessful bids for the White House. My skepticism all but vanished after hearing her speak, briefly talking with her and of course moments have my photo up. At the end of the day, I was thoroughly convinced that she and Barack were in fact the real deal. I found myself once again believing in the possibility of miracles. That excitement and energy from that moment motivated me to support them through 2 elections. Our paths would cross several more times over the next 8 years. It was in August of 2010 that I heard from the First Lady via letter in response to a project that my business associate Eric Hicks and I were planning on behalf of military families, specifically, the youth of those families which were experiencing multiple deployments. The letter came as a complete surprise and read in part as follows: Military families are close to my heart and constantly in my thoughts. The strength and courage you show each and every day is an inspiration to me and to countless others around our great nation. America is blessed to have a strong military with dedicated servicemen and women who defend our nation and keep us safe. In standing alongside our servicemen and women, you, too, are dedicating your lives to the service of our nation. Every day, in cities and towns across America, military families work to strengthen communities and support each other. The song, "I Did It for My Family" commemorates that event, honoring military families everywhere.
my head above the water, never let me see defeat. Said I do it for my family. Said I do it for my...
Barack Obama. In U.S. politics, the period starting from January 1961 through November 1963 was known as the era of the American Camelot because of the charismatic and glamorous atmosphere created by the 35th President of the United States, John F. Kennedy, and his wife Jacqueline Kennedy. The possibilities for our nation were limitless and all was true and good in the nation, or so it seemed, until Kennedy's assassination. The additional subsequent assassinations of Medgar Evers, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., and Robert F. Kennedy created a deep political, spiritual and socio-economic void that left many Americans disillusioned and distrustful of the government for the foreseeable future. Skepticism and cynicism reigned supreme and, for all intrinsic purposes, the political will to stand up and fight the status quo was non-existent. The political will of the nation to do well was no longer a theme many baby boomers felt committed to get behind. This unlikely candidate named Barack Obama was able to tap into the long-lost narrative of hope and possibility which revived a nation's spirit to the chant of, "Yes, we can." Many skeptics like myself, once again started to feel the urgency that maybe we would, for the first time, witness the election of a black president, which would bring about social justice and economic empowerment for all. The thought alone was intoxicating, exhilarating, historic and inspiring. For many it was an opportunity to usher in a new political reality, a second Camelot. A Camelot with a black president and a black first family. Once again in my lifetime the possibilities seemed limitless.